Did you know that there are about 2,000 regulations in the NFL? Every game has dozens of them. But what are some of the most bizarre rules the NFL has? And why exactly have they put these crazy rules in the first place? First off, breaking the rules costs the NFL how much each year? The NFL employs 250 to 300 officials, catching about 10 to 20% of the violations. The league office has 300 employees who witness about 10% of all breaches. You do the math. By count, there are about 100 violations that are caught every week in the NFL. There are about 2,000 employees in the NFL. That's a ton of people, and the league has a budget of approximately $1.5 billion. The 10% of violations caught by officials, 100 of them, are the equivalent of about 1.5% of the league's budget. That means the league loses $1.15 billion a year to illegal play. Can you believe that the $1.15 billion lost by the NFL every year could pay for a $10,000 raise for every man, woman, and child in America? That is, of course, assuming that the NFL is operating according to its own rules. It's worth remembering, though, that the job of the NFL referees isn't to enforce the league's rules. It's their job to enforce the law, and that job, of course, is nearly impossible. Now let's dive into some of the craziest rules. NFL players are forced to stand during the national anthem. Most NFL athletes and owners respect the American flag and country by standing in solidarity during the national anthem. However, there has been a lot of controversy in the media about whether or not players should stand during the national anthem. Whether it's their opportunity to express themselves, we're looking back on a rule we didn't know about in the NFL, one that forces players to stand during the national anthem. In 2016, former football quarterback Colin Kaepernick refused to stand during the national anthem. This situation quickly triggered a league-wide protest that would last 2 years. From the moment it began up until 2018, many NFL players from all the 32 existing teams would refuse to stand during the national anthem, with the leading cause being racial inequality, police brutality, and political controversy. These protests resulted in the NFL losing views and even witnessing a drop in ratings. The protests even got the attention of former President Donald Trump, who showed his dislike of them. Finally, when the situation started getting too much out of hand, the NFL had enough and just decided to upgrade its regulations, making it mandatory to stand during the national anthem before a game. According to an NFL rulebook obtained by Business Insider, NFL players are now forced to stand during the national anthem. If they kneel, the team would be fined and the player suspended for the next game. The national anthem must be played before every NFL game, and all players must be on the sideline for the national anthem, reads the league's policy. During the national anthem, players on the field and bench areas should stand at attention, face the flag, hold helmets in their left hand, and refrain from talking. No one is allowed to make hand gestures during a match. I'm not kidding. There are rules for how to use your fingers during a match. For example, if you hold up one finger to the sky during an NFL game, this means you want a first down. If you put 2 fingers in the air, you want 2 first downs. 3 fingers give you 3 first downs, and so on. The only other part of hand gestures allowed is using your thumb and index finger to give an inch sign to the refs if they're close to making the right call on a measurement. During an NFL game, players are not allowed to make any other hand gestures that I didn't really mention before. For instance, the team which has possession of the ball is not permitted to make the stiff arm or point with one finger toward their opponent's end zone right after scoring. In 2007, the New England Patriots were caught red-handed in such a situation, illegally recording hand signals from a New York Jets coach. This incident later became known as Spygate. The head coach of the New England Patriots tried to defend the team, saying that since the recording was not used in the same game. Unfortunately, the coach's defense statement was not taken seriously, and he was fined $500,000, while the New England Patriots were fined $250,000. NFL players that are convicted of a crime outside the NFL are suspended. Some NFL players have been arrested for crimes which, on the face of it, doesn't appear to have any relevance to their performance as footballers, but many fans would be shocked to learn about a rule called Article 46. It says a player can be suspended from the NFL even if he commits a crime or a conviction happens entirely outside of the NFL. Back in 2014, Baltimore Ravens running back Ray Rice was kicked out of the team for 2 games in a row after being arrested for allegedly assaulting his fiancée. What helped police find out the truth was CCTV footage of Ray dragging her out of the hotel elevator they were staying at while she was unconscious. Soon after that, another video of Ray punching his current wife exposed him on the internet. Upon being exposed, Ray was immediately cut off by the Ravens. He was also suspended by the NFL forever. Even though he tried to get back in the league for a couple of years, he never recuperated his career. Another case was with Roethlisberger. Although he was never charged with the crime, he was indeed suspended for 4 games back in 2010 after violating NFL policy. What he was accused of was not just a violation. However, he was charged with forcing a 20-year-old woman to sleep with him. After further investigation, no concrete evidence fully proved that he had slept with the woman to arrest him. However, the allegations lasted for so long, they completely ruined his reputation. Up until then, Roethlisberger was considered one of the league's most high-profile quarterbacks. Another suspension took place in December 2012 when Dallas Cowboys nose tackle Josh Brent took the form of his teammate Jerry Brown after crashing his car. Upon further investigation, police discovered that Brent was under the influence of alcohol, and the fact that this wasn't the first case of DUI manslaughter to happen to NFL players, the incident further damaged the league's reputation for failing to control the behavior of its players. After the accident, Brent was arrested and sentenced to 180 days in jail. Luckily, he rejoined the Cowboys after 2 years of suspension. The NFL is forced to pay millions of dollars to families of players that take their own life. The NFL handled the athlete concussion issue like a kid. After receiving tens of millions of dollars in payments and wrongful deaths, the NFL was finally ready to admit that they made some mistakes. They're trying to save face. At least they're now paying families of foreign players who committed suicide $1 million each. The story that mostly put this rule into practice was when Dave Duerson made headlines all over back in 2011 when he took his life by shooting himself in the chest. But before that could happen, it was later reported that the former Pro Bowl safety player had told his family that he wasn't mentally stable. He needed to get checked for chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is a diagnosis that lots of NFL players suffer from due to concussions and head trauma caused during the game. Before Dave ended his life, he texted his family for the last time, telling them to send his brain to a clinic to get checked and studied by doctors to find out why he was feeling that way. This is also why he shot himself in the chest, not the head, which is the most common way people take their lives. Dave's family fulfilled his wish, and it turned out what he was saying was true, as he did suffer from chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. After the tragic incident, many people started bashing the NFL for not taking mental health seriously upon its players. When a similar incident happened one more time, such as the one when former Chargers star Junior Seau took his own life from the same mental disorder, the NFL piled up almost $1 billion in lawsuits by former players and their families. Teams can get flagged even before the game begins. Teams can lose the coin toss for both halves and any overtime and be assessed a 15-yard penalty from the spot of the kickoff for the first half if they're not on the field at least 10 minutes before the scheduled start of the game, or if they don't send the captains out in time for the pregame coin toss, which occurs 3 minutes before kickoff. In the NFL, teams don't lose the coin toss and can ask for it back. Some clubs, including Chicago Bears, have a policy that their team should win at least 80% of their coin toss opportunities. But the NFL has rules about when, where, and how teams can ask for the coin toss. If they're broken, teams will be suspended. The NFL does have some pretty crazy rules if you think about it. Some of them are heartbreaking and others are just plain, well, dumb. So which one of these rules surprised you the most? Which one would you change? I would love to read your comments. Thanks for watching.